Welcome into Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh, presented by Collectibles Insurance Services. Glad you could join us on a whole host of national days, which Dan's got the list in front of him. I think one of the names is going to kind of pique his interest, but we're not going to go with that one. He's reading them now. I think he's going to get what I'm saying. We're not going to go with that one.
Fast. I said, grab some melons.
Yeah,
oh,
see,
no,
that's why we're not going with that one, because we're going to be working blue too early here. But no, the World Alternative Games is the one that I want to pick.
Oh,
because
I thought it was Alternative Friendship, which I was assuming is what you have in most of your friendship.
What is it? What is an alternative friendship? You're starting out hot already.
Possibly making someone who's obligated to know you, like a cousin's
like
girlfriend,
a cousin's girlfriend who may or may not be behind me with her friend who's now obligated as well. Yeah,
so like that would be an alternative friendship, not one that was made through merit of character, but just I know somebody you know who happens to be a blood of mine. So
This is spoken like somebody that may or may not be the Granville grabber. So I don't know if I can take that. Seems like hollow criticism. That seems like stones from a glass house.
When it comes to watermelons, I am the Granville grabber.
That's not what that one says, by the way. But I don't know if I want you to say the actual day. People can look it up. See, the good thing is here too, Dan, you always say that I have too many options. I found another website that has even more options. So that's where I got World Alternative Sports Day.
Do you have a job?
Yeah, well, according to you, I still work for the CIA and I have my day job too,
which is stealing cards from old ladies' husbands who died.
Stealing them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, I got this Mickey Mantle. What is that worth? Oh, that's nothing. He was a nothing player. I'll take it off your hands. 25 cents.
That is true to the reputation of somebody else that I won't name in town. That is
an industry like that where he kind of rips off suspecting old widows.
I won't call him out on the show, but yeah, he may or may not be in this area and kind of does that. And that's part of the reason we have this as part of our business.
Is he an alternative friend?
He's not even a friend. I don't think he'd be frenemy at best. I don't know how to. I would eventually. We have a lot of things to build out, you and I, because we still have to build out the Jethro universe. But I would like to build out some sort of friend chart. Like, because I don't know what an alternative friend is. There's frenemies. I'm not really sure what that is. Yeah, there's acquaintances. We could have like 8 categories at least, I feel like.
Yeah, but I mean, that's more of a visual exercise on radio. So I would probably.
Well, how's that visual?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about a chart. Like you want like an actual.
Well, yeah, we got to go through them. Well, we're not going to show the people that fit in the category.
I can't. I'm not going to keep all of that straight. I want to bump you down from alternative friend to just acquaintance.
Wait, am I your alternative friend?
You were. But
I was
your acquaintance
because I tried to get you to chart together. Something. Well, yeah, we're colleagues. That's on it.
Gosh, how boring.
Well, what do you want to talk about? You suggest something.
I wanted you to pick a day. What was your day?
This is like.
What do you want to ask the guests?
This is like when you want to go somewhere for dinner and the other person says, no, I don't care where we go. And then you pick something and they say, no, I don't want that. And then they don't suggest anything.
Okay. I was thinking of the Notebook. Yeah. What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Like every time.
Okay. Just like I haven't seen Titanic, I haven't seen The Notebook either.
Yeah, it's a very celebrated romantic novel where basically the woman cheats on her fiance to get back with her original boyfriend, but it's jostled up because the guy she cheats with was her first boyfriend, so it's okay to cheat.
Is there a time hopping element to that one too?
I mean, I kind of like there's them together and it's them together in the nursing home when
it's like 20 years old. We can't spoil it.
Yeah, well, they're together in the nursing home. And it's the couple that's the basis for the whole movie. But
okay.
The lady has Alzheimer's, so she doesn't remember, but he reads his notebook to her to jostle her memory. But one of the storylines is he goes away to war and she finds a rich fiance. I know this movie.
I can tell. You must watch it every night.
She's engaged to be married to a nice rich man and she misses her first boyfriend, so she cheats on the fiance, but it's okay because they love each other. Switch that to a guy. Is that book loved by women everywhere?
No, so. Probably not. That's not going to work. You sound kind of outraged about this, though.
Well, no, because I started thinking about it. It's kind of like everywhere. Like a lot of these novels, it's okay to cheat if it's like your first love or, he treats you better. And it happens a lot in a lot of these romantic comedies. And I just like, if the guy was the cheater, he's always the villain. It's never like, oh, he loved that woman first, so it's okay for him to leave his current girlfriend because he loves her more.
But by the way, just for the audience's edification, Dan's the married one of the two of us. I just would like to point that out. I'm divorced, but you sound more like the bitter one at the moment. I have proper
perspective on love. Cheating is never good.
Well, that's implying that I did that. I didn't do that. But anyway, we got.
I'm not going to bring up your past relationships. You bring that up sometimes.
We already had. I think it was ex-wife day was actually one on the show, but then Dave Dalton was 1 week off. He wanted to celebrate it the next week, and I said we can't do it.
No,
I should have booked him next year.
What do you do with Friendship Day though? Like, oh, who's your best friend? Joe Rampe, or is it Joe Rampe? Like, it's a guy named Fred. That doesn't do anything for anybody.
Well, that's why I wasn't going to pick that one. That's why it's got to be alternative games, because you would like this. I feel like this is right up your alley. It started because someone wanted to have the World Bog Snorkeling Championship.
Okay, come on. I thought you were going to say like bocce ball, not
there's some other ones. There's rock, paper, scissors. That's something that's something you know.
Heard of, yeah.
How about French cockerel throwing competition? Can I interest you in that? Or underwater hockey?
Is that
French cheese
that last
rolling?
Game you say that again?
Underwater hockey.
The French one. What was that?
French cheese rolling.
No, you said something.
French cockerel throwing competition.
That kind of goes with grab some melons day, but it's not melons.
Well, okay, you can do this one, but I can't. As a transition
what are you revealing?
From the last one, wife carrying championships.
Yeah, well, my wife is 9 months pregnant. So can we wait a couple weeks?
I mean, I don't know how she'll feel about that. Does she even listen to this?
She just found out today that I talk on here.
Really?
So I highly doubt it.
Wow, she needs to go back, because that's one of my favorite segments, legitimately, on the show, is when you talk. Yeah, but you didn't used to talk on the show.
Yeah, because you would never shut up.
No, that's not true. You're putting that on me. You've always used to talk.
No, you used to book it at the open with somebody. That's actually probably what it was. But
then I realized, hey, I want to talk to the producers on the show.
And I mean, when you have glistening talents like A.A. Ron and Big G, you need to let them shine. And Jeff does not get enough. Jeff does not get enough airtime. He does not have a 4-hour show every week to himself and then fills in for Conrad all the time. But Jeff needs more airtime.
What is up with you today? You're just taking shots at everybody. Are you okay? Do we need to have a counseling?
I was supposed to play.
I don't know.
You always said I'm the straight man, and you're like, I'm the grumpy.
You picked this character. Yeah. You've been leaning more into this one in recent weeks, but I'm a little worried that it's coinciding with your 9-month pregnant
every time I
wife.
ask you about what you do for a living, you're like, nothing, man. I was a mail carrier. I work for the government.
That's exactly how I sound. Yeah. You nailed the voice, though.
I was like, oh yeah. I've been trained as a human asset of the intelligence arms of this government. And you're like, yeah, I walked a dog or something. Like, it was cool. Like, no.
Professional dog walker?
And I know you can't tell us what you did, but you can be a little bit more open about it.
I don't think I said any of that about being a mail carrier or anything.
The way you talk about it, though.
That's how I talk about it?
Line of questioning, and every time I do it, it's like, I like Scrabble. And maybe every now and then I'll have a lemonade on the porch. Like, you never like. It's like an interesting topic.
Can I watch Matlock after that?
You do.
That sounds. That sounds.
That
okay, A-Team and Matlock are not similar at all. Not same category.
Matlock come out?
I don't know. Well, there's the new one. There's the Kathy Bates one. Do you want to watch that one together?
Everything, but I'm talking about, when did Matlock originally come out?
I'm not sure.
I would bet a lot of money it was the 80s.
When did probably
even come out.
Well, they're not the similar shows though, just because they're similar eras.
What year were you born?
83.
Can you disclose that?
Sure. I'll answer any question you have.
Ask me things where you were barely old enough to grasp what life was. That's your favorite pop culture stuff.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Well,
you like Golden Girls?
I'd like to point out that's come back around. I haven't watched that one a ton. Why are you so angry?
I'm not angry.
I like how you filibustered through a non-question where you just then said I wouldn't answer a question, but you didn't ask me one in that entire rant about me not answering any questions.
Asked a question, you're like, yeah, I went to driving school, and that was fun. And
this is how I sound, though.
Like the most average driver ever. Like I didn't take too many risks.
That's a good story.
Less risks. I was just Mr. Perfect driver. It's like, oh, great story. You were the A student. Thank you. I want to know something juicy about your training.
Okay, well, ask me a question instead of just filibustering like we're at a local government event.
So when
here.
it comes to like the physical aspect, do you have to reach certain standards? Like you can run a mile in this many like seconds?
No.
So this is more just like an intelligence. Like, is this more about your brain acumen than it is like physical?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay. Was there any certain requirements that they had you have to meet, like on a physical aspect, or I mean, obviously you can walk and chew gum, but like I'm saying, like was there
I don't
any
think you've seen me do both at the same time.
Was there physical training involved, or was it more mastery? Like, did you have a boot camp that you had to go through?
No boot camp. No, there were different trainings that were emphasized towards different things.
Okay.
So
Like
it depended on what career service you were in, what side of things.
Going, like if you're going into intelligence as opposed to field agent kind of thing, or
yeah, I mean it's all intelligence, technically.
But,
yeah.
Okay, but like more working like behind the scenes, using your brain to analyze information.
Right.
Essentially.
There's support folks, field folks.
Okay.
That would be how that would be the dichotomy.
I'm trying to figure
there.
out who you are and how many different ways you can kill me without ever being found out. That's really what I wanted to know.
I mean, maybe if you didn't say so many things, you wouldn't have to worry about that.
That was a veiled threat. Why are you so angry?
I mean, I don't think most people have to worry about that. They don't have that in the back of their mind when I'm with them.
A former CIA agent, or they don't openly talk about it.
I'm saying most people when they're with me, I don't think they're worried about that part.
That's what I think you put on this Mr. Rogers character that you got going on.
This is what I have.
I don't do drugs.
This is Mr. Rogers.
I don't eat soy. Like,
won't you be my neighbor?
Yes.
Did you say don't eat
soy?
Oh, don't eat soy. Yeah. Wait, are you anti-soy? Is that what's happening?
Well, I'm a bit of a soy boy.
What? Can you explain what that is to me? Because I have a friend that talks about that, but I don't really know what that is.
Well, you think I know what that is?
Well, you said you are one.
I believe it's just someone who kind of lives more like a vegan lifestyle or a vegetarian, like a healthier, non-meat processed food focused kind of diet and lifestyle.
I'm gonna text my buddy and tell him that you told me that you're a soy boy, and then get his reaction. He's gonna laugh. Well, I don't know if he's a soy boy. I'm not sure. I just don't know what it is.
Boy. I'm friends of soy boys, but I'm not a soy boy myself.
But actual friends or like friend adjacent?
Frenemy.
You're frenemies. See, this is why we had to build out the scale.
They are my alternative friends, though, but I am their frenemy.
Okay. Well, oh boy. See, this is getting complicated. This is why we needed to build out the chart. You yelled at me for trying to build out this chart. Now we need it.
Non-visual aided. I'm remembering it all now because it was such a brilliant idea, colleague.
Can I advance from colleague by the end of the show?
You might get back to acquaintance.
Wait, acquaintance is better than colleague? Isn't that lower than colleague?
I mean, if you start being really nice to me, you could be my work husband.
Wow. Who is your work husband now? Is it Steve?
My own father.
Your dad's your work husband?
I don't know. I'm just saying things.
Does he know that? He's probably mad that we haven't talked about baseball at all in this entire segment.
I was waiting. You literally put something profane, watermelon, alternative friendship, and games. Like you didn't put anything about sports on here other than games.
That's because Joe Rampe, your buddy with an E, Joe Rampe. What is he to you? Is he your buddy?
Joe Rampe. I have never heard of this guy in my life other than reading it off the page.
Well, he is of Tiger's intelligence report. So he will be able to tell us.
Is that a front for one of your like secret cabals of government people?
I have noticed that people are using intelligence more in coverage. Have you noticed that too? I think we
should use the word cabal. I think it's a great word.
You think? Okay. That didn't answer my question about people using intelligence more. You're just kind of doing your own bit here.
Yeah, I often don't listen to what you say.
Yeah, I know.
Talking.
I know. You don't have any headphones on right now though.
Well, why do I need headphones?
I don't know. You just don't have any on.
2 feet away from me.
I'm used to you having 2 pairs in, and then when I pointed that out, you got very mad at me.
You said I had 4 when I had 2.
Well,
so
you had the individual one, so you had 3, I guess. Yeah. But wouldn't it be 4?
But yeah, you made it sound like I had 4 different sets. Like I'm some sort of master of time and space who can understand and listen to 4 different things at once.
You're very sensitive for somebody that dishes so much out, frenemy.
Here's the thing. I'm just insane, so it doesn't matter. There's no emotional intelligence. I can say words that I read somewhere else. All right, we got to go to break.
We do have to go to break, and we're going to bring on Joe Rampe, Dan's friend, to talk about the Tigers trade deadline here.
What his favorite alternative game is.
I will, or maybe I wanted to ask him about the friend scale. See if we had built it out more, we could have asked about it.
Oh my gosh, dude, we don't have that much time.
After the break, Joe Rampe. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM.
If you have an e-commerce business, take it to the next level by partnering with Encore Business Group. Encore.
Welcome back to Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh, presented by Collectibles Insurance Services. I'm very excited to bring on this next guest because we got to talk some Tigers. We did the thing that I end up doing sometimes, which is when there's big news out there, then I don't end up talking about it. So in the first segment, we talked about a lot of bickering about friend levels, and then we also talked about the world alternative games. So we didn't really settle on a thing of the day, Joe, but I think I'm going with, what's your favorite alternative game? Like a non-sport. This apparently started because somebody in Wales wanted to do the World Bog Snorkeling Championships, but then they have other things like rock, paper, scissors and underwater hockey. So is there like a game that maybe not everybody plays, or something you made up when you were little that you like to play?
This one threw me off guard a little bit, but me and my son play. We blow up a balloon and try to keep it up in the air.
Classic.
They call it keepy uppy on. They call it keepy uppy on Bluey. That's where he got it from, and that's been our favorite game recently. So I guess I'd go with that.
I actually knew what you were talking about because I've played that with a couple nieces and nephews. And that's, now I get why they called it Keepy Uppy, because everybody's watching Bluey. So see, this ended up being a good question. It's kind of a random subject. There's also a bathtubing championship. We didn't look into that one, Dan. I gotta look at that one later. But no, we're excited to have you, Joe, because I was going to talk about the trade deadline in the first segment, and then it got away from me. So we need your help to ground us and get us back to where we need to be, because, man, there's a lot of deadline to talk about. When I first booked you for this segment, we obviously knew it was going to be about an hour after the deadline, and we weren't sure what it was going to hold. Then the weekend we saw the first trade, and then they got one in under the wire. Obviously, it's probably too early to know all the prospects involved, especially in the Mize trade, but curious kind of how you take in the strategy of the deadline, because they did pretty firmly sell with getting rid of those two pitchers that were likely headed to free agency no matter what they did.
Yeah, I would imagine that, like most fans, it's pretty bittersweet, heading into the year, such high expectations for the season, and then things didn't get off to the best start, and then May happened, and it's like, what is going on here? And I, as of a few weeks ago, I was still kind of the mind that if there was a way to, try to find a way to stay under the competitive balance tax and pick up a reliever or two. I still thought that they would have a chance of going for it, but then I started to do a little bit of research on, controllable relievers that could be a part of some sellers' rosters, and there just weren't really any. And the Tigers need a complete bullpen overhaul, in my opinion, and to be able to thread that needle of staying under the tax and keeping Skubal. And it sounds like they were maybe even over the tax already. So being able to do that and add, it just became, I just didn't see a clear path. So I was happy with the Skubal return, the Mize return. I tried to do as much research as I could, and it sounds like they did pretty well there. So I'm happy with the returns. I think a lot of people are wondering, why didn't they add to the bullpen? But then you see some of the returns for the bullpen pieces, and it felt like if you were going to get a controllable reliever that was going to be an impact reliever right away, it probably would have cost someone like Josue Briseño or someone in that range. And that's just what the prices were. And I'm not sure if I would have been willing to go that far. So I can kind of understand that Harris was in a bind. And I thought that they did pretty well with the Skubal deal, pretty well with the Mize deal. But I can understand people being frustrated that they didn't pick up a bullpen piece.
I think that's a great point, though, Joe, because that's one of the things that I've talked about since basically the last trade deadline. I know people were not happy that they weren't more aggressive about going for it, and they gave up hardly anything, although Jim Jarvis ended up being something here to the Braves, but they didn't necessarily give up a lot, and they didn't get a lot when they tried to trade for the Monteros of the world at the last trade deadline. They did get Finnegan, and now people are not as pleased with him, but he's been pretty serviceable for them for a while, and they didn't give up much to get him. But I think the relative price of a reliever both last year and this year was just too high. It was too preclusive for them to pull the trigger on it. People could be yelling at me right now and saying, well, you got to go for it. They know they need relievers. I understand the argument, but I think all of these folks, especially a Scott Harris, has kind of a value proposition in mind. And yeah, if that prospect that you have to give up is Briseño, I mean, just like they had to give up Jarvis to get Montero, and that wasn't really a good relieving asset, and that still ended up being a pro player that has, in a small sample size, played pretty well for the Braves. So I don't think you want to try to mess around with giving up a Briseño or one of these guys that is a top 5 prospect for them to get a guy that is more on the temporary side, because a lot of these relievers that were on the market didn't have a lot of team control either.
Yeah, and how many relievers are really good for multiple years in a row? You know, there's only so many Mason Millers out there. And if you look at a lot of the relievers that signed for the most money this year and last year, you know, the hit rate there isn't great either. And I think that the one takeaway that I've had from this deadline and the last deadline is I feel like building a bullpen and developing a bullpen is on people. It's a little bit on people's back burner because, you know, relievers, relief pitching is volatile. They impact the game on an inning basis, the least amount of anyone, but trying to find relievers on the trade market or in free agency is just not always a winning proposition. And so teams like the Rays that are just like pumping out these bullpens every year of guys that people have never heard of, and they find success. I don't know what the formula is, but it feels like if there's a takeaway from this deadline, it's that being able to build a bullpen from within is much more valuable than I think people give it credit for.
Exactly. I think it's an important point because I know that's going to be the takeaway from a lot of folks, but there's also the fact that you don't necessarily know. A lot of these guys that do end up becoming very good relievers start as starters, and then they realize that the transition is easier to the bullpen, and it makes sense for their stuff to kind of amp them up and embargo them to those last 3 innings or so, unless they're a long reliever. And I think that's a big thing to remember with some of these guys that they got back. We don't know, but you look at some of the arms and it's like, well, okay, they're actually sitting fairly well on starters after getting rid of 2 of them. Their starting rotation, if you projected it for next year, is actually looking halfway decent. You got Job working his way back. You've got Melton, you've got Montero, you've got Fromber under team control, and so then you've got hopefully Olsen in the mix for next year. That's 5 names right there, depending on how it works out. So some of these guys, when they eventually make it up, maybe they push one of those guys, or maybe they become a reliever as well.
Yeah, that's such a great point. I have. What I was afraid of when you start to hear reports of the Tigers are targeting a controllable starter or whatever the case may be, I kind of thought if you're trading Tarik Skubal, you should just go for the best package, and trying to target something specifically could be limiting there. But I also agree with, the starting pitching depth in the minor leagues looks way different after this past draft and after the trade deadline than it did before. And only a certain amount of guys can end up being a part of your starting rotation. And so if a guy like, Kiter Montero gets sent to the bullpen, that only helps, in my opinion. So I think the more potential impact starters that you can acquire, the better, because just exactly as you said, there's a good chance that some of them will end up being in the bullpen anyways. And, you know, you can see it with a guy like Tyler Holton, where he has a starter's arsenal. And if maybe your cutter's not working that day, or your fastball, you just don't have it, you can lean on these, on other pitches, where a lot of guys that are pure relievers, they basically have, you know, one or two pitches. So I think that it's, I feel much better about the Tigers, starting pitching depth throughout the organization. I'm with you that next year's rotation looks pretty good, as is, and River Ryan, the one of the co-headliners of the Skubal trade, to me, he, Troy Melton, and Jackson Jobe, but one of those three, I would argue, has the best stuff in the entire organization. And so a guy like that, I know that he hasn't always been healthy, but he did have Tommy John surgery, but he was also a two-way player in college. And I believe that he might have even been a redshirt senior. So the fact that he's 27 years old or 28 or whatever it is, that doesn't bother me. I like his stuff. I know that he's dealt with some injuries, but I think that he's a wild card in this equation too. So I'm with you about the rotation. And, you know, hopefully that has a trickle-down effect on the bullpen.
Exactly. It is a good discussion to talk about where these people slot in, because I think you got to think the big picture there. Holton's a great point, and it makes me think of the other point that happens with this discussion with the pitching is when they do get one of these guys, a high leverage reliever, and you spend all that money on them or assets, whatever it is, or both. When you end up with one of those guys that has been used a lot, I think that's part of the reason that some of these guys burn out, because it's the same thing with Holton. He's the one that makes me think this with the Tigers. He played basically everywhere 2 years ago as far as they were doing the opener thing. They were doing the pitching chaos, and Holton was one of the primary arms that they were using in order to execute that. And there was a reason that last year and this year he's been a little less consistent. You could list a lot of things. You could say, okay, well, there's more tape on him. People can now prepare for him a little bit better, or yeah, he's getting a little bit older, or maybe he's picked up some injuries or whatever it is. But I do think that usage, when you do have a high leverage reliever that's constantly warming up in the bullpen, constantly going in the game, that wear and tear also equates to the inconsistency that you see with those guys versus the radical consistency that you have as a starter. You have your situation is very consistent aside from the playoffs. Typically, if you're a starter, you know what day you're going to start on. Typically, you get to have the same routine. That's not the case for the relievers, and I think that's why it's like inconsistency breeds inconsistency.
Yeah, that's very well put. I have nothing to add to that. That's especially having to, you know, guys get like you said. I think that there's a bigger impact on guys having to get up and get hot and then not come into the game. That all accumulates, like you said, and the better team that you have, the more your high leverage relievers are going to get up and get loose. And the other side of that is, you know, if you're picking up the high leverage relievers on good teams are the guys that people want, because they've proven that they can do it too. So yeah, I don't think that it's surprising that relief volatility, especially for free agents, is what it is, because these guys have been accumulated a lot of wear and tear.
Exactly. And that's one of the main reasons last year I wasn't really in that camp of, hey, I wish we went out and got one of those high leverage guys. I get wanting to get them, but I just didn't like the price. And so I don't know if that puts me in Harris's camp or what have you, but I thought Finnegan was a good deal relatively speaking, compared to some of the other high-end relievers that you had to really give up big-time prospects for, whereas this year they might be getting some prospects that you could turn into that. So it'll be interesting. I want to talk about those prospects a little bit more and talk about the returns from the trades and where you see them going from here. Plus, we got to talk about Max Clark. We can't get out of the segment without talking about Max Clark. So stick with us. So we'll come back with Joe Rampe after the break. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Welcome back to Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh, presented by Collectibles Insurance Services. Coming back here with Joe Rampe of the Tigers Intelligence Report, a little intelligence crossover for Dan here. He was looking at the deal for Mize there and noticing something that was a good point, that they gave up two players in that deal. They gave up Workman in that deal. Joe, you were talking about the return for that one, but you think the return overall, this is what I try to tell people with this thing. I know it's tough to get rid of Skubal and Mize. We don't need to skip over that. They've been, especially Skubal, he's kind of he's one of the best pitchers to ever do it for the Tigers, and in general, his resume speaks for itself. I don't think there was any way they were going to keep him. So there's that piece of it. And Mize is kind of the same way. If they were pushing that hard for free agency, it was going to be hard to do anything. You might as well get some assets out of them. But the return hopefully is pretty good. You never know with these prospects and everything. But I also want to look at the kind of perspective at this time too, because one of the things that I've been saying on the show a decent amount for the last few weeks is, hey, remember 2 years ago when they traded away Flaherty, they traded away some other players, and they were selling, and then all of a sudden they kind of took off. I know the Athletics aren't necessarily a top team in the league right now, but they fared well against them as this deadline stuff was happening. It didn't seem to affect morale. You do have a decent starting rotation even without those two guys. You've got some other players that may not factor in for this season, but you got some other players in the system. You've got some players that you identified over the course of the year. McGonigal, Malgeri has been decent on his way up. Hyu Lee, who was a darling of a lot of the people on this show, that we've been talking about him for 2 years on this show, so it's been fun to see him. And then now we get Max Clark, and the thing I kept saying about Clark is I don't really care how ready he is in the eyes of the Tigers. This guy's a ball of energy, and he's going to bring that to the major league roster, and that's how it seems to have been so far.
Yeah, I think, I was looking at the Tigers outfield situation recently, and I believe that their right fielders have combined for somewhere like around a 60 WRC plus this year, and their center fielders aren't too much better than that. And defensively, I think along with the bullpen, the outfield defense has kind of killed the Tigers this year. And so as Max Clark started heating up in July, you started to wonder, he was clearly the best center fielder in the organization at the time. But I know that you don't want to bring someone up before they're ready. And he clearly crossed off a check, crossed off some sort of checklist that they had in mind for him, because some people would argue it would have been smarter to wait 2 more weeks so that he would retain his rookie eligibility for 2027. But who knows how that's all going to turn out anyways. And the other thing about Max Clark is that I think that guys with elite plate discipline like that, all prospects are going to go through their ups and downs once they end up in the major leagues. But guys that have a baseline of elite plate discipline, I think that their transition just ends up being a lot smoother, because that does translate. Of course, the pitchers are much better in the majors than they are in AAA. But even when you watch Max Clark take a pitch, I think that you can tell a lot from how guys take pitches, and just the way that he takes pitches, he clearly knows the zone. And you're right, he is a ball of energy, and everyone that I talk to that has interacted with him has nothing but good things to say about him. I know that this spring there was whatever that was with his chains, but I think I love that he's up now. I think that he's going to help out a lot. And you were kind of talking about their kind of like the bigger picture here. And you mentioned 24, and I think that's in play. Obviously their rotation is worse off without Skubal and Mize, but I still think that their rotation has a chance to be, in the top half of the league. And their offense has been coming around since May 1st. It just keeps coming back to the bullpen, and it's the same issue that they had. Whether Skubal is on the team or not, you can get leads, but you have to protect them. And I think it's if the Tigers get some positive regression from some of their bullpen pieces, Kenley Jansen's stuff doesn't look terrible. He's struggled with walks. Finnegan has the luck has kind of caught up with him as the season has gone on, but there's still talent down there. And if there's some positive regression there, I think that the Tigers do have a chance of making a run, but it's hard to put much faith in this bullpen as is. And I think that's going to be, that will be the deciding factor if they can make a run or not.
Totally agree. And I just wanted to bring that up as kind of a possibility. Obviously that was like a 0.4% chance when that actually happened. So I'm not necessarily looking, it's actually not the same lack of likelihood this year. It's actually more likely for them to even win the division probably at this point because of how kind of parity driven the division and the league, the American League is as a whole. But it's still worth noting as far as, yeah, they sold, but that doesn't, I don't think that necessarily means they're out on this year, because they could get hot, especially because I have been waiting for the Max Clark effect. I've been joking that him and McGonigal are classic, like, buddy cop duo, that McGonigal's the straight-laced guy. He made it up a little sooner, and now Clark, I'm going to make a Lethal Weapon references, which is probably a little old, but you had Riggs and Murtaugh. Murtaugh was the guy that was too old for all of it, and he was wanting to hang things up, and Riggs was the guy playing fast and loose, had kind of the reputation. That's how McGonigal and Clark kind of they make me think of those two guys. And yeah, you mentioned the chains thing. That's just such a non-issue to me. I can't believe that we're trying to grade somebody on whether or not they wear jewelry and have tattoos. That doesn't affect anybody's ability to play baseball. There might be some older baseball fans yelling at me for that take right now, but it doesn't go together. It just doesn't matter. And so I think he carries that swagger well, which is the key. You can have too much swagger, no matter what you do, no matter if you do wear jewelry or not, or have tattoos. You can kind of be, because I remember somebody comparing the pull up to when Yasiel Puig came up, and he started hot and then obviously kind of faded away. There's been some of these guys that have been more flash than substance. I think Clark is both flash and substance from all of the coverage that I've read.
I agree 100%, and I think that the different and what a reference to Puig, and I think that it kind of goes back to the plate discipline factor to me. I think that certainly Max Clark will struggle, but there's a floor to his performance that I think even if he is playing to somewhere around like his 25th to 50th percentile, let's say, it's still much better than what the Tigers were getting. And I do think that infectious personality that you're mentioning with him and McGonigal, I mean, I think that could be rejuvenating for some of these, for the clubhouse. And they're going to need something, because that's the other side of this, is that a lot of the quote core of this team, Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green, Colt Keith, a lot of these guys, they've all been in this organization with Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal for their entire careers, for the most part. And that has to wear on anyone. They're human beings too. And sometimes I get a little bit frustrated on Twitter and online when people kind of talk about these guys like they are human beings too, And so seeing your best friend, I know that they're professionals, but it has to have an impact to see two of your close friends get shipped out. But I saw AJ Hinch had a quote, or he said the other day that, you can kind of, you just have to, once the game starts, you have to put that aside. And I think that they will do that. But yeah, I think that we're already seeing it with Max Clark. And I think when Jackson Jobe comes back, there's a certain electricity to those guys that I think will be a boost. So we'll see what happens.
One of the major things that I feel like this team has struggled with has been kind of the leadership and energy part of this, because there's a lot of compound effects that can happen by those clubhouse guys that can get people going. We've had Nate Robertson on the show, and I've interviewed him about the whole gum time thing. And as silly as that seemed from the outside, and probably is from the outside, that kind of became the rallying cry and helped the team out a lot, in addition to what he was doing on the field. And there's those little things that can get people going, but certain players are more likely to do that than other players. Some are more steady state kind of folks, where up or down they kind of stay the same way. And the Tigers have a decent amount of those guys, which is good in a lot of ways, because you don't then have a volatile locker room. But then sometimes you need that spark, like you're talking about with Clark. And I thought that was a great point that you were talking about, the weighted runs created, for the fans that didn't know what Joe was talking about earlier in the show. When you're talking about that from the outfielders, I think that's a great point, because that was always what I was looking at when we were talking about Clark, because it was like, okay, he's always been better than the worst outfielder on the roster, because the worst outfielder on the roster has not been a very enviable spot for the Tigers this year. We've had guys that obviously then, Meadows got hurt earlier in the year, and then you've got Perez underperformed, Jones underperformed, Vierling has struggled. A lot of these guys that have been that last outfielder, we've brought up Outman ahead of him. Love his name. Performance is little iffy compared. But, Malgiri came up, and it was like, okay, when is Max the next one? And we finally found that. But part of the reason I wanted him up is because of that kinetic energy that's then created in the clubhouse, where I don't, what he does on the field is obviously going to be consequential, but I think what he can do in the locker room is more consequential.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that stuff matters. And as you were saying that, it also made me think of Jake Rogers too.
Yep.
He seemed a little bit like, I'm not obviously not in the clubhouse or anything, but he seemed to be a little bit of a glue guy too. So it's going to be a whole different vibe in that locker room. But we've been talking about, if the Tigers get, and I've mentioned if the Tigers get hot, and the truth is they kind of have been hot since June 1st. But you just do wonder if this is going to be deflating, which I think that it just naturally would be. But and you do wonder if maybe that played some of the calculus in bringing up Clark when they did, because a lot of people that I trust were very confused by the timing of that. Like I mentioned before, I believe that the cutoff date was August 14th or 15th, where if they would have held him back, they would have had a chance at that PPI pick, which it seems like they have a good chance of getting with McGonigal this year. But, counting on a rookie to win Rookie of the Year is that the odds are low, no matter who they are. So I think that that there is a chance that the organization felt we need a boost right here too. And he doesn't have much left to prove at AAA. So let's just pull the trigger and go from there.
Exactly. It'll be an interesting stretch run for him here, just because they got rid of those two guys. I don't think you count them out quite yet. They'll be a fun team to watch, I think, either way, for a lot of the reasons that we're talking about. But great stuff, Joe. We appreciate you taking us through the deadline and everything going on. Be sure to tell people where they can follow you here in between this and your next appearance, which we'll hopefully have you on again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. What a day to be on. You can find me at Tigers Intelligence Report on Substack, and then I'm also on Twitter at Joe_Rampe, RAMPE. I just like talking Tigers, and I appreciate being on the show.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
That was great stuff from Joe there. Appreciate him coming on and taking us through the deadline. I got to check back in with Dan. He's been very quiet after the first segment. I think he got a lot of energy out. I got to check in and see how he feels about the Tigers deals, and then we might discuss some of these other alternative games going on. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Welcome back to Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh, presented by Collectibles Insurance Services. Coming back here in studio with Dan. I get kind of sad during the show because Dan starts out so hot. We have the opening segment where he's yelling at me about different things and listing all of his grievances that he has. Well, not all of them. I'm sure he can't fit them into 15 minutes. And then he kind of then gets quiet, and I do the interviews. So it's kind of nice. I get to check in with him and see how he's doing with his quiet time that he had the last interview.
Yeah, I'm like a toddler. I have like a really big burst of energy, and then I get tuckered out and need a nap. But no, I mean, I stopped talking because, as I understand it, the format of your show is you interview a guest along the lines of intelligence.
Okay.
And you want them. I could chime in with bizarre interruptions, but I feel like that wasn't what you based and sold this show on, so I try to respect the format.
Well, I wouldn't mind trying that one of these interviews. I think that could pep up some of the interviews. We might have to pick our spots with that. Like, it probably wouldn't be the next interview with John Ogrodnik, five-time All-Star for the Red Wings. No, I don't know if that'd be the best one.
Disrespectful. I think the guest would have to know that it's possible.
Yeah. It'd be like a regular that's more used to kind of goofing around on the show, kind of thing.
Yeah, like Dr. Jimmy would be a great one because he'd be talking about, what's going on with Kirby Joseph's knee again, and I would just be like, speaking of knees, do you like a bratwurst, or are you more of like an Italian sausage guy? What's the difference?
And he would love that. Well. And did you see, I don't know if you follow Dr. Jimmy, but he's been getting into a legitimate Twitter X beef with Kirby Joseph.
Oh, really?
So I think he was kind of worried about that at the beginning when this all came out. But then Kirby literally at one point, because Kirby's back on X, and that's been kind of must-see TV.
Apparently my timeline did not seek that out for the algorithm, because I'm on X, but it's been just like a lot of Tigers stuff and, occasional other random things, fight videos that I didn't ask for.
Why are there so many fight videos on there?
But you'd be like, because like every other algorithm, you take Instagram Reels. I got rid of TikTok because I don't trust the Chinese. Thanks for telling me about that. And then even Facebook, like all my Instagram is just comedians back to back. All my Facebook, for some reason, is taking an inspirational advice, husband wife comedy kind of stuff. X, it'll be, one of these MLB experts talk about the trade deadline, and then some teenager getting beat up in the bathroom, and I don't know why. And I'm like, do I not scroll up fast enough? Or like a lot of them, like, you ever seen these First Amendment auditors? So
I don't think so.
So they're people who go to they just have a camera, and they go to a public place, and they wait for somebody
to get
riled up and call the cops. And most of the cops are intelligent enough to be like, you're in a public place, you're not doing anything, please stay off private property. If people ask you to leave, please leave. And they'll be like, have a nice day. But some cops get real worked up, and some people get real worked up. And I will admit, I do watch that sometimes.
Interesting. I watched one of those videos, and then it was it. That was it. It was like my algorithm knew I didn't care for that because it was a lot of nothing. Like the interview itself, nobody really got hot, but the interviewee I actually thought was pretty good because it was kind of like, okay, so what's your point other than that? And they were like, First Amendment, and then that was kind of it.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, no, but you have to have a greater point. Do you have a greater point?
But the one thing I did like is you don't have to give your ID right away. This is one thing I've learned, because they're real big sticklers on that. I was like, I'm not giving you my ID. I don't have to give you my ID. What crime am I under suspicion for? What have I done wrong? Well, I just asked you for your ID. I was like, you don't have reason for it. In a lot of places, you're like, you don't have to give it. I don't know. Where were we going with that?
Hopefully we don't have to run into any of that. Well, I wanted to, you follow the Tigers You're talking about it being in the algorithm. What do you think about these trades that happen here?
I mean, Scott Harris just came out and said, I thought it would be irresponsible not to do it. He said, I hate selling, but, one eye on the future, one eye on the present. I've always kind of agreed with that. And, I mean, with the Mize thing, I would have been fine if we didn't move him because we could still get a draft pick if we offered him the qualifying offer. And if he takes it, you get a reasonably priced another year of him. So I would have been fine with that either way. Trading Mize, it looks like they felt the return was better than what they could have drafted. With Scooble, this dog and pony show with the, hey, please, I want to be a Tiger. I want to be a Tiger. I would love to finish my career here. Okay, tell us what you want. He never did. What they wanted was the Tigers to make an offer so they could set the market. And Scott Harris, I think smartly, never did that. Maybe they talked to him a couple years ago when he was still before arbitration and everything and offered him something then. But in the last couple of years, not once did I get the vibe that Boris with his weird Scooby-Doo puns and, Scooble with his fake talking out of both sides of his mouth. I love it here. But, oh, hey, I want to, it's not up to me. It's not up to me. That's not my job. My job's to pitch. Dude, there have been guys who go to their owner and say, this is what it would take for me to get done. There's plenty of people who said, I'm not saying he needs to take less money, but at least he could have told us, all right, 8 years and $400 million would get it done. Okay, if you want to stay, we'll offer that right now. I'm sure Illich might have considered it. That never happened.
There was a lot of evidence that he wanted to enter free agency and that he wouldn't have minded going to the West Coast. I
read somewhere that a pretty good article by someone I think who was not just somebody on X, but basically said people in his life were kind of obvious that they wanted to be on the West Coast, closer to his home as Arizona, somewhere. Well, same time zone or a time zone away, not 3 time zones away.
I think the benefit to being at Detroit is I think he did legitimately like the team and like being there. Obviously, the ballpark is a bit of a benefit as well for a pitcher, but I do think that the West Coast is where he would have ended up had you let him go to free agency. And so then you can't really play all out of those other games that you're talking about there. So I think it's a good point.
Yeah, and then real quick, because I saw a couple of people being like, oh, look at what the Red Sox gave up for Adley. Is it Rushman? I don't know how you say his name. But it's I read that somebody tweeted that. I was like, yeah, but the quality of the Dodgers' depths, Hope would have been the number 1 prospect on the Red Sox. And, even though he's 28, he's still a top 70 MLB prospect by most whatever I'm trying to say.
I think at one point he was 26 on the top 100 in the entire league. To your point,
about River Ryan.
Oh,
he's in the top 70 even though he's older.
Yeah,
Hope is a legitimate top 25. Yeah. I think some people place him higher, some people place him lower. But I know we got to get to break. So,
well, I'm glad I got your thoughts. Next break, we'll get your thoughts on the World Worm Charming Championship because I think you're going to like that.
Can you finish?
So that's
you know the buttons press, right?
That's a tease. I'm not fully trained on the board. I can just get us on air. But we're going to bring on John Ogrodnik after the break. Excited about this. 5-time All-Star for the Red Wings. We'll talk to him about his career, what he's up to now, and his thoughts on the Red Wings. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM.
From the GarbarinoRoofs.com studios.
Country with a twist. Jethro FM. 1530 AM. WYGR Wyoming Grand Rapids. 94.9 FM Grand Rapids. 99.5 FM Lowell. And Jethro South. 980 AM WAKV Otsego Plainwell. 98.9 FM Otsego. And 105.1 FM Kalamazoo. Available worldwide at jethro.fm.
To Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh, presented by Collectibles Insurance Services. We're venturing to get John on the phone here. We're not connecting with him. Hopefully we can at some point. If we can get him on, we'll switch to that. But as much as I do want to talk to John, which we'll get him on if we don't get him today, I do always like talking to Dan, apparently more than he likes talking to me. I'm kind of gathering from the first segment. Where am I on the scale right now? Have I advanced, and we have more time to build out said scale as well?
Well, I was trying to go for a strong silent type while you were on the phone talking to other people, and you called me out for that. So I have actually downgraded you to guy I know.
Wait, guy you know is worse than acquaintance? Well, acquaintance was better than colleague. I take issue with that. I feel like colleague isn't that better than acquaintance?
I mean, colleague, sometimes it's just, you guys both got hired by the same company and you get paid by the same people, so you both have motivation to show up, so you have money bringing you in. But at least acquaintance, I mean, a work colleague could be an acquaintance, but acquaintance is usually you guys know the same people. And, that's more based off of interpersonal skills, likability, reasonable interests, hobbies. Like, that's my guy I play pickleball with. He's an acquaintance. Not really a friend, but, we at least both like pickleball. So, yeah, no, colleague to me would be worse than acquaintance. But again, this is all subjective.
Well, we have a lot of similar interests. So I feel like we could potentially meet there. What do I have to do to supplant your dad as your work husband, which is just a great sentence?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, wine and dine me.
Oh, okay.
But don't whine.
Yeah,
and I guess we could dine.
Well, and then the wine, you'd want the H-less version of whining, I suppose.
Exactly.
But okay, that's good to know. It's good check-in.
I'll try John one more time.
Okay, he's going to try John, and then I do want to get Dan's thoughts if we don't get a hold of John here on the next one that I have pulled up for the World Alternative Games. I got to talk to somebody about this. I want to talk to an expert. We're going to try to get somebody on Sports Intel to try to fill me in on these games, because now I'm into them. And there's the annual World Worm Charming Championship, and it's in the village of Williston, and you get a 3x3 meter plot, because it's overseas, so they do meters. They actually do it, in a way that makes sense. So they have meters, and each person has 30 minutes to charm as many worms as they can. And I was today years old when I knew that you could charm worms. Did you know that you could charm worms, Dan?
No, I think most people have heard of snake charming, whether they don't know it or not. Is that like a lot of times that's like playing the certain tone of like some instrument that they will respond to, I think, or snake charming, just another word for training. Don't actually know, but I've heard of that. I did not know you could charm a worm. It makes me feel bad because, like yesterday, when I was putting them on a hook, that they did not seem too charmed by that.
No,
however,
you would lose the worm charming championship.
Yeah, but I mean, I did drop one, and he did run away pretty fast, so I see some potential there.
Do you think the running does equate to the charming?
Well, you get a will to live.
Okay,
like, so he might put up with some charming training. I don't know. So what exactly? I wasn't really listening. I was listening to a phone ring. So it's a 3x3 plot.
Yeah, you get a 3x3 meter plot, and then you have to charm as many worms as you can. And I just don't know
what that means.
Yeah, like what that entails. Like, how do we charm them? Do we play a flute? That's in movies, that's what people do to charm snakes, but I don't even know if that's how you do it in real life.
Yeah, that sounds, I don't know. I don't know that I would ever want to talk to a snake charmer. Because at first when you're talking about all these weird games, alternative, I should say, it sounded like, like that dodgeball, like ESPN, the Ocho. Like, ESPN 8. Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm thinking, like, and envisioning. Like, I could watch for a couple minutes somebody make a bathtub and row it, down out in the lake to see who can make it the furthest. Don't know about seeing whose stick doesn't sink the quickest or whatever that was, but
yeah, that was Pooh sticks, the Winnie the Pooh.
But
just
why
for
is it
people
called
that
Pooh stick though, like
it was.
I thought it was gonna be something involving Winnie the Pooh.
Well, it was a Winnie the Pooh reference in some way. I don't know what happens in Winnie the Pooh. Yeah, but you literally just put a stick in the water.
Yeah.
There's two competing sticks, and you just see who sinks the fastest.
Yeah, and I would have thought like alternative games. I mean, I'm thinking like, what do you like playing bags? What's the actual name for that? Cornhole.
Yep.
Yeah, like or ladder golf, like
dodgeball, which is where that term came from.
Nothing like ripping someone in the face and having to sit out. Worth it.
I wish that I know you're a softball player, Dan. I wish there were more dodgeball leagues. I think I would participate in more of the games if they weren't softball and golf. Those are two of my least favorite things to do, just in general, especially golf.
I'm pretty big on the anti-pickleball train. Like, I'm not a big fan of pickleball. Like, I get it. I don't. Every time I see a pickleball court go up, I want to burn it to the ground. But
you do have somebody in studio right now that averages 3 to 4 times a week.
It's a great way to stay in shape. Keep yourself young. Good for you. Why don't you do it not 2 doors down from my house?
He's looking at my mom for reference. No, it is. You were looking at the right one.
Move. We're so alive. I'm glad you can meet you and your other country bumpkins at 6 a.m. in some random church gym.
Wait, why are they country bumpkins?
I don't know.
That's who plays
that was
pickleball?
the nicest name I could come up with on a country radio station.
Country bumpkins. That might be a future show idea. Country bumpkins with Dan and Ryan.
Dan, I would do it. I mean, you say you get mad when I get quiet. I was like, yeah, because I'm not a sports expert, so I'm not John or Tyler or Joe. So you're supposed to interview them and get good points out of them. I have not made a salient point ever on this show.
I think people would disagree. You have a lot of fans on this show, and you can count me as one of them. But you have a lot of fans on this show. I get feedback specifically about your appearances on the show.
I've heard this, but like you also told me it was some one-stop town in the suburbs of Kalamazoo. Like that's basically what I heard. Like one stoplight town that was like, hey, yeah, my mom and her pickleball buddy like you. Like it's like, thank you, the legion of my army is growing strong, and apparently they're able to play pickleball at a not very advanced age.
Would you like to adopt your name and have it be what the Detroit secondary was, and have it be the Legion of Whom? I liked that name. That was one of my favorites.
That was really good. I like that one a lot. I mean, I like the word Legion, but I feel like the other word's got to be something. I mean, we'll come up with it. We got more homework to do because we have to do the Jethro universe that you still want to build out. I don't even know what that means. Like we're the Avengers.
Well, we had started with, I think, football coaches, and I think because usually when we compare anything in Jethro to anything in the real world, you start with Big G. I feel like that's the starting point.
Gregarious guy.
Big G.
Yeah,
the G's for gregarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss Big G. I feel like there's a relationship that I have let get away.
Oh, well.
We're like two ships passing in the night.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Well, there's always time. Shout out to Big G as well. He had an operation and it went well.
Is that what's going on?
Yeah. He posted it on Facebook, so I think I'm okay saying it on
I won't go for any more details. I hope he's recovering.
But yeah, he's doing well. He did have a health issue, but I did talk to him today, and he's doing well. So wanted to hit that point as long as we were talking about the big gregarious.
The big gregarious. I like that. That could be, that could be like his baseball name, which his nickname is, like the Big Hurt, That's all I got. The Big Hurt, Big Gregarious.
Well,
Big Country, I think, was one.
Big Country, Bryant Reeves. Yeah. Big Country. He was a basketball player. That was a good nickname.
Yeah.
I liked that one a lot. Well, Big G, sometimes I'll use the G for different things on the show. That's one of the things that I do when he's a producer, because sometimes the G means different things. Obviously it means George, but I think it means different things for different times.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, I used to go, Steve calls me D Money, and I'm always wondering what the D means in his mind. So that's fair,
Well, yeah, I think that was a requirement for the producers that everybody had to be referred to by. You got A.A. Ron from the old Key and Peele skit.
Yeah.
You got D Money. I don't know where that do you know the origins of that?
Yeah, my dad asked me one time, somebody asked me what my future plans were. And I told them I wanted to drop out of high school and start a rap career under the name D Money. It was a very serious response. So my dad thought that was funny. So
that seems on brand for you. Not necessarily the rap career, but the answer to that question seems very, very on brand.
Yeah. So I've always been a very serious person.
Well, see, we learned more things about Dan. This was a good segment. I enjoyed this. Next, we got to talk about the man versus horse marathon. That's the next alternative game.
I don't know how again in the break.
I don't know how that one works actually. The man versus horse, because I mean, a horse is faster than a man, right? That seems like
kind of a manpower and horsepower, but I know which one wins every time.
So that one is not as fun as the worm charming, but yeah, we'll try to get John again in the break. And if we don't, we will probably try to bring on Tyler Metcalf, who's our next guest after John. He is going to cover the Pistons for us. I've been trying to get him on to talk about the summer league and the draft because he was our go-to guy before the draft here. So stick with us. We'll bring one on after the break here. Hopefully you're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Intel with Ryan Walsh, presented by Collectibles Insurance Services. We're now double booked here, it seems like, because we got the phone ringing, so I can only guess who that is. But we have Tyler Metcalf on the line here, and so we're happy we have him in the mix. And so Tyler, you know how this goes. We do celebrate the thing of the day, and I've got a fairly random one for you today. Not that they're all not random, but it's Alternative Games Day, and I'm curious if you had a game that you played maybe with your brothers and sisters or with your friends when you were younger that was just kind of a made-up game, because a lot of these games that I'm reading about on the alternative games are quite fun, and there's one that's, I think it started because of the World Bog Championships. So you probably don't have anything like that, but I'm curious if you had a made-up game that you played.
Oh, boy. I'm sure I did. It's probably something I'd have to check with my parents on, but I'm sure they have a ton of horribly embarrassing stories back from when we were kids. But the only ones I remember were like vividly were like just getting the neighborhood together for like kick the can and, you know, capture the flag and that kind of stuff. But I nothing off the top of my head.
I like the capture the flag reference. I never really played kick the can. I didn't understand that one. That seemed that literally is now a phrase for just doing something to advance time. So I feel like that's not a good that's not a good marker for that game if it was actually fun, because it's literally just the passing of time that we talk about kick the can for. But capture the flag's a classic. That was a great one, and I would still play capture the flag. I was telling my producer Dan that I want to play dodgeball. Capture the flag would be another one that I would sign up for if they had adult capture the flag.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You get some of your friends and family together and get a big group of people out in the woods or across the neighborhood. Yeah. You can have some real fun with that.
Exactly. So so that's a good one. See, you had a good answer to that. You've got answers for everything. The last time we had you on before the draft here, the producer that was in studio then, Jeff, was like, man, did that guy know a lot about basketball. I said, that's why we have him on the show. We literally could go anywhere with Tyler. And then I realized that some of our other guests that were on the show had you on their show for the Pistons. So wanted to get you on to review the Pistons side of things a little bit, the draft, since No Ceilings and your crew is kind of one of our go-tos for the draft. So I know it's been a couple weeks now, but we got to see Summer League. We got to shake everything out. I'm curious how you see this from the Pistons perspective. Obviously you cover everybody, but this was a guard laden draft. So how do you think the Pistons did with grabbing the guard that they did?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that they went with Ibuka Okori. I was a little lower on him on our No Ceilings team. I think I was the lowest, but I had him like early 20s, so like similar range for where they took him. But there were other people on the team who had him like in their lottery. So he had a lot of fans, and what he did at Stanford was just outrageous this year in terms of scoring and shooting and playmaking, and just the overall production that he had on that team to be one of the biggest surprises as a one-and-done undersized guard. It was spectacular, and like you would just the second you watch him, you immediately can see just like the different speed that he plays with. A lot of times when you get guys that young who have that type of straight line speed, they're like out of control almost. It's kind of like the kid from the Mighty Ducks who's really fast but can't stop. But that was never really the case with Okori, because he knew how fast he was. He maximized his speed, and then he also played under control. So I was a little surprised that the Pistons went with him, just because we had heard them linked to a couple other guys like a Bennett Sturts. But I believe he was off the board by then. But the fact that they went with a guard wasn't totally shocking. Like we saw how important having secondary creators both on the court with Cade Cunningham and playing behind him, how crucial that's been over the last 2 years. So finding more of that long-term depth with a ton of upside, it did make a lot of sense.
Sturts was the guy I wanted. There was like you said, there's a lot of guards in this draft. So I kind of see both sides of this argument. Obviously, we'll see how he ends up playing. That's the big determining factor. But you can read kind of one side of it, because it's funny how many people kind of came out against it to a degree. But there's one side that, hey, if this is another year, Okori's probably a lottery pick versus where he went because of the guard depth this year versus previous years. True for a lot of the guards in this draft, not just Okori, because they got pushed back if they were 6th or 7th in line beyond kind of that upper echelon of talent, where those guys in a weaker draft that we've had kind of recently, they would have been a little higher in a lottery pick in that draft. And then also in that positive column, you've got the fact that, like you said, on a team that didn't necessarily boast a lot of other premium talent, he had one of the better seasons that anybody's ever had, and he had it as a freshman. It was comparable to one of Cade's years, and I remember seeing that the certain volume that he did basically with not a lot of help around him. It was a certain shooting percentage, 3-point percentage, assists, points, all of that. There was only a few people that had done it. It was Trae Young, Cade Cunningham, Mikal Brown from this draft, and then Okori as well. So you look at all of that stuff and you think, man, you put him on a Pistons team that does have a decent amount of talent, and I could see this working. But I still am not used to saying this, Tyler, but 6'1" is now very small for a guard. We've had some smaller guards in the Pistons era, so a lot of people will be yelling Isaiah Thomas at me, but that was a little while ago. But also, I don't even think he's really 6'1" from what I was hearing from the summer league folks, that he really wasn't looking like a solid 6'1", and then he's got to contend with the size change in the NBA.
Yeah, and that was one of my biggest concerns, was the size. Now, and like, if you can play, you can play, and size is just a number. You'll figure it out. But the fact that he is small and really struggled to finish around the rim in college, that was a big concern for me. Like, when we look at those first round guards, he had some of the worst at rim finishing numbers at Stanford, and there are obviously a few factors that go into that, and mainly his context being as bad as it was. Like, that Stanford team was really bad. So, like, the spacing there was horrible. So he's driving into trees and like multiple defenders pretty much every time. So it's like, okay, well, maybe that's a big factor. But then you think about it in the Pistons context, and it's like, all right, well, they're not exactly overwhelmed with shooters, so the spacing there is not incredible either. So driving into multiple NBA level defenders and rim protectors, are we going to see similar issues? And we kind of did in Summer League already, where he's so good at getting to the rim, but once he gets there, the finishing consistency just needs so much work. And at that size, it's really tricky to figure out. So I think he's got good touch, and he was really good from the free throw line. The outside shooting numbers were really encouraging, even though the form's kind of funky. And he drew a lot of fouls at Stanford. So like there are some compensating factors that make it a little more appealing and intriguing, but at the end of the day, like, he's still not a good at rim finisher, and that's a big development that he has to make. And then obviously just the size on the defensive end alone, it's going to be a huge limiting factor in what he can do. So I'm curious to see what his defense continues to look like when he doesn't have to do literally everything on offense, but he's going to get targeted a lot, and it's purely because of the size.
Yeah, that's one of the things I worry about, because it's kind of, I mean, we've seen this even, I mean, shoot, there was even moments where where a guy that's won Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA, Rudy Gobert, has been played off the floor in certain series, because if you're too far to the extreme, or if you're not able to hang with whatever's going on, his was kind of the switchability to the perimeter, which is tough for any big man. But when you've got a smaller guy, that they now take more advantage in the NBA of those mismatches and undersized players, where basically it's like you said, he can be a talented defender, but it doesn't really matter at that point, because he's still the height that he is. And so they just manage whatever the switch is, get a bigger guard on him, and there's a lot of bigger guards in the NBA. So yeah, I was more interested in some of the other folks. Sturts was kind of my guy to a degree. I also was fairly high on Carr as well. I just thought his kind of shooting and two-way ability was maybe a better fit for what the Pistons needed. I get the need for a secondary ball handler, but I liked the idea of adding another shooter too.
Yeah, I love Cam Carr. I was shocked that he just kind of kept falling like he did. But that was a common theme in this draft with a lot of the guys who fell. Just go look at how much they weighed. And the NBA was telling us this year that they watched the playoffs. They saw the physicality that everyone was playing with, and they're hesitant about some of these skinny dudes like Cam Carr, like an Isaiah Evans, Malik Thomas, LeBaron Philon. So like all of those guys in pretty much any year would be top 20, top 25 guys locked, but they're really skinny, and it's like multiple years of them being really skinny. So I can't believe that the Lakers looked into Cam Carr. I think he's a perfect fit for what they want to do. And just kind of going back to the defensive stuff of the Corey too, because like I'm sure fans or listeners are like, well, the Knicks just won with a tiny point guard. A little different situation, and it's taken years for Jalen Brunson to figure out how to be passable on defense, and he was in a perfect defensive setting for it. So it's really, really tricky. It's not to say that a Corey can't figure it out. It just makes life so much more difficult, and it makes roster construction and lineup construction way more difficult when you have to insulate him on every single possession, especially in the playoffs when guys like that just relentlessly get hunted.
Exactly. And like you said, Brunson really had to work his way up both on the offensive side and kind of his gritty style. But to talk about the finishing, he's become a supreme finisher, though his arc on his shot and all of that. And he is a bit of a bulldog in there. When you talk about weight, that's something that Brunson has as an advantage. He's a pretty beefy guy, and that helps even at his height. So it'll be interesting to see how he does. I do think when you're talking about Carr and him slipping and for different factors being the weight or whatever it is, I do think we're going to look back at this draft and see some guys that were maybe drafted after Okori have pretty good careers as guards. So obviously that happens every year. You got to get your guy, but there was a connection between Trajan Langdon and Okori, and so he has seen him more than other prospects, so that always kind of sticks out too, because you know this, you guys scout, you guys go to the games sometimes, and you guys watch a lot of tape. Some of it is just seeing a guy more than another guy too, and that was the case with Okori. He's seen him more than any other prospect in this draft class.
Yeah, and you get those personal connections, and you start to know the kid, and you know the intel, what's real, what's not, and at the end of the day, this is a relationships business, and sometimes that can lead front offices into making incredible decisions, and sometimes it doesn't. But these aren't just athletes; they're not just numbers on a page. There's so much human element that goes into it as well, and for Trajan to have that type of connection and have that type of closeness and familiarity with him, if I was a Pistons fan, that would be more encouraging to me than discouraging.
Exactly. I think that's the part people have to kind of remember, because in the pros, it's harder to get that. You're more used to doing that in college, where you've got a connection with these kids in high school. You're recruiting them from the point where they're in high school and they're developing. You're seeing that development, because for a young guy like Okori, who was only a freshman, or a lot of these guys that come out into the NBA and they're not even full-grown adults yet, sometimes not even full-grown, like Giannis and other folks that put on height and weight after they enter the NBA. Part of the reason is because they're not even adults yet. A lot of them, they're not 21. Jalen Duren sure as heck looked fully grown when he got there, but he wasn't 21. And Okori, who knows? You could have growth, but you should have growth certainly on the personal development side, and that's really the side that you're betting on, is saying, hey, the make or break issue with a lot of these guys once they get to the NBA is how hard they work once they get there. They all start at a certain point, but it matters how much work you put in once you get there.
Absolutely. All of these guys are talented. Like, talent is rarely an issue when you're looking at an NBA player, but what separates those guys are the little things. It's the work ethic. It's the attention to detail. It's the film study. It's the ability to pick up scouting reports, ability to take coaching, how they mix with a team and the locker room, and how all of those aspects of like workplace dynamics that a lot of us don't really think about when we think about these teams. It plays such a huge factor in a lot of these guys flaming out. Like, context and team landing spot always matters for anyone, regardless of who the player is. It's just some players it matters a little more than others.
And he's in a good situation. I remember reading one of the synopses of his arrival to Detroit, basically comparing it to Lamar Jackson behind like an all-pro offensive line. And that's basically what, that's a good landing spot for pretty much anybody, as you pointed out. But yeah, that's interesting stuff. I want to take a quick break and talk about some of the other young guys and kind of the Pistons arc here, and talk about the other guy they drafted here as well, because I'm sure you guys scouted him and had a report on him. So we'll come back with Tyler Metcalf of No Ceilings. Stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Welcome back to Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh, presented by Collectibles Insurance Services. Coming back here with Tyler Metcalf of No Ceilings, talking about the Pistons and the draft as a whole here. But I'm curious what you think about the other draft pick here, Tyler, because that it's harder to scout, especially for the lay person here, that we don't, unless you have seen them play in college, don't really have a lot of information unless you're watching a lot of Virginia basketball. But I'm curious what you thought of the center they took in the second round on Yenso.
Yeah, Ugano Onyenso was one of the just elite, like truly elite shot blockers in college basketball last year. He ended up playing like really limited minutes. He was basically their third string center, but that's because they brought in two guys from Europe, in Thijs de Ridder and Johan Grunlo, who were pretty decorated and experienced European players that I'm guessing they paid a pretty penny for. So it wasn't because necessarily of ability, just kind of situation. But every time he came in the game, I mean, he was swatting multiple shots every single game. He was a good rebounder, good rim runner, play finisher, and this is a guy who, formerly played at Kentucky and was really highly touted when he initially came into college ball. But it's just one of these guys where it just kind of took him a couple of years to figure out who he really was as a basketball player. And this last year, he played like he knew exactly who he was. And that's someone who wasn't going to space the floor, who wasn't going to create his own shot. And his only job was to finish at the rim, rebound, and protect the rim. And he did all of those things at an incredibly high level.
I'm by no means comparing him to this guy, but I do like the scenario that if in the second round you're going to grab somebody, it's somebody like this that could clearly be a diamond in the rough. Like you said, at Kentucky, he's been buried. He was buried at Virginia. The fact that you say, okay, the second round picks are basically all a little bit of kind of throwing a dart at that point anyways for most of these teams. You've got intel on guys, you've got scouting on guys, but it's hard to really know a player super well or be confident in a second round pick. But this is the type of guy you want, because it makes me think of when Bam Adebayo was buried in Kentucky. Like I said, I'm not comparing him to the player, especially after Bam somehow is now the number 2 scorer in NBA history for a single game, which still is weird to me. But great player, and they were able to get him later because of the fact that he wasn't able to showcase his skills quite as much on those ballyhooed Kentucky teams. Whereas now with Onyenso, there's a chance that you get a guy that, you may see, okay, wait, he kind of had a little bit of a shot that we didn't know about, or he may be able to stretch the floor out to 15 feet, or we may be able to develop some post moves or something in addition to what is a transferable skill, especially for a team that lost Isaiah Stewart, another guy that slipped a little bit in the draft, had more traits than they knew, but kind of got squeezed out because of the depth there. This is a good guy to kind of throw at the bottom of the depth chart, I feel like.
Yeah, and anytime you can find those guys in the second round, and the second round now with NIL drawing so many of the younger guys back to college, the second round now is basically anyone who's just like aged out of college basketball. But if they're able to bring like a truly elite skill to the table, they're really intriguing, because at like a bare minimum, you can view those guys as physically and like emotionally and mentally ready to take the floor in an NBA game. And then if you have that one or two elite skills like Onyenso has, you're able to put them in as a backup center or third string center pretty quickly and use them as a specialist and know that they'll be able to execute their role. Because if you're grabbing a 19-year-old who played exactly like Onyenso did, you can talk yourself into, oh, maybe there's all this other upside here. But the odds are it's probably he is who he is, and being able to grab Onyenso and that elite skill set that late for that cheap, it can really, really help just the depth of a rotation. Is he going to win them a playoff series or anything like that? Probably not. But is he going to help them stay afloat in the regular season? Is he going to really help curb the loss of Isaiah Stewart? And, you know, we'll see what happens with Jalen Duren, but just provide some sense of, 10 minutes a night of stable second or third string center minutes. Absolutely, because he knows who he is and he plays to his strengths and doesn't really try to do too much else outside of that.
When I look at an NBA roster, I tend to look at where the depth is as far as, nowadays, especially with the two-way contracts and all of that, you've got a 2-3 deep format that you obviously the second string players typically play in the rotation, especially in the regular season. But those third string players that might be fringe players, the Pistons have had pretty good depth this last year or so, and they reshuffled the center position. Obviously, they're working on the thing with Duren, but they've got Onyenso, who could slot back in as maybe a third or fourth center along with Tolu Smith, because they had a pretty strong G League team this year, and then you put those guys behind Reed. So I like that he's a little different skill set and something that's a back end guy that at least is going to protect that defense when the offensive player, more offensively skilled player like Duren or Reed goes off the court. I don't know how much summer league of the Pistons that you caught, so I don't want to put you in that box, but I'm curious if there was anybody that stuck out to you on the summer league side for the Pistons, or just in general, who were kind of like the winners of summer league for you.
Yeah, I really only caught when I was out there, I really only caught their first game against the 76ers. Admittedly, I was pretty focused in on Okori and Phylon specifically and what they were doing. And, both guys were a little up and down, had some really good stuff, had some, would love to see this improve, but it's summer league. So you take the positives away and you worry about the negatives at a future date when they start popping up. And I just, my biggest takeaway from summer league in general was just thank God all of these top guys showed up the way they did, because they all looked incredible. And as someone who runs a site and platform that's mainly focused on the NBA draft, we've been hyping this draft class up for a while now. And so the fact that they all showed up and delivered on that hype right away was very encouraging and very appreciated. But just seeing the versatility and the IQ and the two-way impact on winning from Darren Peterson, from AJ DeBonsa, from Cam Boozer, from Caleb Wilson was like, oh my God, these guys are so good. And just the amount of talent that continues to come into the league and how much youth basketball has been on the rise. And when you compare these guys to summer league just 5, 6, 7 years ago, it's just so different with how far these guys have come from a skill standpoint. And the fact that we're seeing guys ranging from 6'2" to 7 feet tall pull up from three, make really high level passing reads, push in transition, handle the ball like a guard. It's a real testament to the skill development that's constantly going on at these lower level programs and coaching. And when you get guys with the right people, how impactful it can really, really be. So I was just really encouraged with obviously the top guys in this draft, but even just the talent throughout this first round, where you have a Yaxel Lundeberg looking awesome for Golden State. Braden Burries looked incredible for Milwaukee. Michael Brown for Brooklyn. Yegor Demon returning in his second year for Brooklyn. Like, there's just a lot of really encouraging young talent this year at Summer League.
Well, it's probably in part because I read your guys' stuff so much, but this was a draft class that I was pretty high on as well. You're one of my main sources of coverage, so that's probably part of the reason I got there. But I feel like we'll look back on this class in subsequent years and go, oh man, that was really loaded. These are guys that are all factoring pretty prominently into their teams versus maybe some, maybe last year, maybe some recent years here. I do feel like it's deeper. And you made a great point earlier in the interview, Tyler, that NIL all factors into this. So the fact that they were able to have such a strong class with NIL, with some of those guys staying back, that hopefully means that the future looks pretty bright too.
Yeah, hopefully. And it just, I know I'm the first to admit that the transfer portal and NIL and all of that stuff is an absolute mess, and I have no idea who's playing where, or who's eligible even, because now we got guys in the pros trying to go back, and it's just a mess. But I think something that it has done is given these like wild card freshmen who historically would have just said, screw it, I'm going in the second round, and then they flame out and never really get the chance to show or improve their game. Now they get a chance to be compensated and go back to school and improve their game and come out when they're ready. Because like a guy like Ugano Onyenso a couple years ago, or like if not for NIL, maybe 2 years ago, he tries to go pro and comes out too early and just goes undrafted and is just kind of wayward, bouncing around the G League. But now, obviously, he's still in the second round, a lot of work to do, but it's at least a more encouraging path that guys like that get to pursue. Exactly.
And to your point, I just read a headline today that said, oh, Braden Smith's not going back to college. I'm like, wait, that was on the table at some point in time? Like he got drafted. I remember seeing him. He already set the assist record. What are we going back to college for? To make it out of reach for everybody in the rest of history here? Or what are we doing? Because I was at the Big Ten tournament, so I almost saw him break the record. He was just a few assists short. He broke it in the NCAA tournament. But it's just funny, like you said, because you've got guys now that come out to the NBA and then they now apparently have eligibility, so they go back to college. It's a rotating door that's tough to follow. But thankfully, there's a lot of talent that's rising to the top here.
Absolutely. And I know the 2027 class kind of keeps getting labeled as like weak, but it's not this class. It's not the 2026 draft, but there's always talent to find, and I just think it's a little more wide open than we've gotten used to with and spoiled with some of these recent classes.
And I know you guys project out a lot, but and you do a great job at it. But it's like, well, we still got another year to play till we kind of get to assess the 2027 class here. So, but you guys are the guys who go to follow that. So I want to make sure people know where to follow you guys for that coverage here for the upcoming year.
Yeah, I appreciate it as always. Always fun to talk Pistons hoops with you guys. NoCeilingsNBA.com. We got NBA draft coverage, college basketball, international basketball, NBA coverage. So NoCeilingsNBA.com, No Ceilings on socials.
Be sure to follow them. It's great stuff, and it's good to get ahead on this stuff too. If you are watching for the draft or for your college team, whatever it is, they do a lot of updates. I'm on their email list. It's a lot of updates all year, but appreciate you coming on, Tyler. Always great stuff, and we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right, you too. Thanks to Tyler Metcalf. Appreciate him coming on. I'm going to come back in studio with Dan, check on him. He's had his quiet time. He's ready for his burst of energy. He's got multiple headphones, so that's a good thing. That makes me more confident about this next segment. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Welcome back to Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh, presented by Collectibles Insurance Services. Want to thank them and the rest of our sponsors, Eric Hall Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Calder Financial, Grand Management Group, Right End Investments, Encore Business Group, Jim Hagelin of JH Realty, Williams Chiropractic, the West Michigan Sports Commission and Nomad Be Happy. We appreciate all of their support. We appreciate the intel from the guests here, Joe Rampe or Joe Rampe. I've heard it both ways, but he, I believe, said Ramp at the end of the interview. But most people that refer to him as Rampe. So I think we got to get it out there as Joe Rampe, since that's Dan's friend, and then Tyler Metcalf. I did get word from John Ogrodnik that we did make contact with him, so I think we might have him on next week. So we'll redo that segment here. I wanted to check in with Dan to see where I am on the friend scale, and also note something that I don't think he realizes he told me, but he has now identified another person at Jethro that he's friends with, and I'm wondering how he got ranked ahead of me. How'd he skyrocket to friends? Is just because he's more popular than me? Is that why?
He went out of his way to say hi to me. He gave up valuable time in his life to just say hi to me at my place of daytime employment, and I was touched.
I seem to remember a time where I ran into somebody at the lazy river of Great Wolf Lodge, and I said, hey, as long as we're at the Great Wolf Lodge together, we should hang out, while we're here. And that person then subsequently didn't hang out with me. So I'm just, that was kind of a similar scenario. But then I went a step further and wanted to hang out versus, just saying hello.
Yeah, phone works both ways there, Ryan. I don't remember the invite. I just remember, hey, suggesting it. No, we already had numbers because we worked together. So I could have met you for some ice cream. We could have played in the arcade. We could have done many of things. Shared a slice, Lady in the Tramp style. But you did nothing, Ryan. So early bird gets the worm.
Were you charming it, the worm?
No.
Oh, okay.
Dave, I'm going to put it out there. Dave Conrad said hi to me. Yeah, that's right. Conrad's Country Bunker went out of his way. Okay? He busted out of the bunker and said, hey, I got to talk to this guy. Not because I'm his boss's son, just out of true being a great guy. Star power like that doesn't come out of the woodwork for just anybody. Humility is what it really like. I'm sorry that I didn't contact you on my family vacation with my kids and pregnant wife to come and say, hey, Ryan, you want a lolly? No, you put it all in my court. So I'm sorry, you threw out the invite and then you wanted me to dance. So you wanted me to take your hand out onto the floor? No, we could have met on the floor, okay? We could have done something like, what's that famous dancing movie? You could have lifted me over your head and twirled me around.
Dirty Dancing, I believe.
Dancing. Yeah. We could have dirty danced.
You want me to Swayze you? You want me to pick you up?
You could have Swayze'd me. I would also take a ghosting type thing.
Oh, okay.
And you
with the pot, yeah.
But
okay.
This is why I get angry, Ryan. You try to throw the cupcake back in my face. You know what? We should have shared the cupcake.
You're skipping. You seem to be skipping between the acquaintance stage or colleague stage or whatever the lowest stage, because clearly I'm there, to just straight to work husband, because the ghost scenes and the dirty dancing, that's work husband kind of stuff.
Yeah, you could have tried to charm me. Okay.
Well.
Do you know the art of seduction? Apparently not. They didn't teach you this in spy school. Goodness.
Okay. I'm supposed to seduce you? I didn't know that was part of the equation.
It doesn't have to be a physical, like.
I don't know. The ghost thing is pretty physical. So is the dirty dancing thing.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Those are both pretty physical.
Like
Lady and the Tramp.
Physical romantic.
That's
connection.
very physical too.
It doesn't have to be like that. I'm talking about the art of seduction. Can be a personality seduction. You can seduce a friend. Jeez, it's just a use of a word. I'm sorry. So you want me to feel bad about this?
I don't want you to feel bad about anything.
So I actually, the lowest rung of the friendship scale, and after you try to throw that in my face, is dead to me. Okay?
That's okay.
Dead to me. I don't
That's
think
where
I'm
here
at. Next week, you can enjoy your lover boy, Jeff, you play Enya songs with. Yeah, I don't think I don't know about your secret little tryst with other people. Don't act like you want to be close to me, and then you got all these other side.
I see what's happening now.
Side friends.
Yeah, I see what's happening now. It's jealousy and star chasing, by the way, because that's what I'm seeing with this Dave Conrad thing. The star of Jethro. You want to be more associated with him, not some nobody CIA guy that won't talk about enough of his career and hasn't done anything. He wrote a book that nobody bought and all of that stuff. That's what I'm hearing. You want to be friends and you want to hang out in the bunker with the big star of Jethro.
I will go to places that I am treated with warmth and genuine compassion, and that's what Dave Conrad did for me. Okay, I'm sorry that the cold, hard government agent type like you who wanted me to do all the work, I'm sorry. But I have a new friend. His name is Dave Conrad. I'm sorry. It has nothing to do with the first 2 times I met him. He looked like he had seen a ghost and I was stalking him. But this time he said hi.
Well, there you go. Well, be sure to tune in to Dan's friend / maybe future work husband, Dave Conrad. He does the Country Bunker. We might as well use this as a promo for Dave, because I just feel like this has been a Dave oriented show and segment, because he likes the Tigers a lot.
This is the first time we brought him up.
Well, he likes the Tigers a lot, so he would have liked that coverage of the trade deadline. I could see him tuning into that.
You really try to pull these different unattached ropes together to hold this whatever.
We're doing radio here, Dan.
I'm trying to steer.
I'm trying to.
Gosh, he likes the Tigers, and he sits in chairs. So yeah, Dave and I. Yeah, he would. This is a Dave centric show. We talked about him for 2 minutes, Ryan, and we talked about him and what of a gentleman he was, and that's all it is. Move on, sir. You're obsessed with the star.
I'm trying to take all of this spaghetti that you're throwing at me, all these individual noodles, and I'm trying to make a pasta with them. I'm trying to make something out. I feel like this has been like when I saw Vanilla Sky in the movie theater. I saw it Christmas Eve one year with my dad, and
what a great Christmas memory.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it wasn't particularly a good night either, because he was not happy about the movie, but the movie felt like they were putting all these, it's the feeling I have. We were talking about Christopher Nolan the other day. It's the feeling I have when I watch a Christopher Nolan movie sometimes. It's like he gets all these threads and then he puts them together, and then it's like he goes to pull them at the end of the movie, and then you have this perfect ending. Oh, okay, that's the way these threads all come together, and then really he just pulls it and it all ends up in a knot. Yeah. I'm trying to untangle this so we don't end up with a Christopher Nolan ending here, because
you would want a Christopher.
No, I don't want one.
You don't want a nice bow on it?
No, he doesn't put a bow on it. I think it ends up.
Said it all. He pulls it and it's a nice knot.
No, it's a knot. That's not a bow. Okay, it's all knotted up.
If it's tight, he put all it together.
You want a knot at the end of the movie? I don't think you want a knot.
No, I feel like it's like, oh, he's throwing all this paint at the canvas and it ends up being a masterpiece. But no, you're saying no, he's throwing all this paint at the canvas and it just looks like a pile of paint that someone spent 4 seconds on.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say if you want to talk about tying things together in threads, almost every single episode of Seinfeld did that. Where does this? I mean, some episodes were all in the same place, but some episodes, all 4 characters were separate, and they still almost all ended up at the same spot, and it all tied in together. So that, to me, is what you should have said, because this is more of a Seinfeld episode than a Christopher Nolan Vanilla Sky reference, which I never understood that movie. I remember watching it, and it bothered me. I don't know if he was dead and he was in his own mind. His mind was in a computer or something. What was that? That was a bad
This
movie.
is what I'm talking about. You're mad at me, but agreeing with me at the same time. It doesn't make sense to me. You're agreeing with my point that was a confusing ending. And you're also contradicting your previous point about you're talking about how I have this buddy relationship with Jeff. He's also a big Seinfeld guy, so now you're taking his lane. You're trying to step in. Now I'm back in the jealousy box.
I saw yesterday.
Who's that?
I saw Jeff.
Yeah,
I was working the Sunday morning shift.
And
he came in for his lunch pail. And you know what?
What?
He was very nice.
I bet he was. He's a nice guy. So is Dave. And tune into both of their shows here, because you've got Dave during the week, you got Rowdy during the week, their regular spots morning and then afternoon for both Dave and Rowdy. I don't even know if Dan wants me to advertise the Shane Graham Extra Points show, because Shane won't be on it, so it'll just be me, so he won't be paying attention to that. But in case you want to,
is it called Ryan Walsh No Points if the Shane's not there? What's the name of the show?
Probably. That's probably a good one. I think I invented this with you, where when he's not there either for the full show or the final segment, I have it as the extra point for the final segment if Shane's there, or we go for 2.
Yes, I remember that.
If he's not.
That was pretty clever.
But it's, wow, a compliment. I appreciate that.
I'm trying to make you feel better. And oh my gosh, what do we call it if it's not extra points? It's a football show. What could we call it? What's the alternative to an extra point?
I think no points is good.
Brilliant.
I think no points is good. I'm on board with that.
That's pretty good.
I like it because I'm all for the self-deprecation. So you doing it for me is just kind of like my internal monologue, talking out loud. So, but we don't want to we don't want to skip your other friend, Steve Project. Yeah, I'm sure he's your friend. Where does he rank in this scale?
Steve is like a work mentor.
Oh, he's a work mentor.
Yeah, he was the first one I was ever around sports talk radio in, and he just has really shown me the way. When you put out the gold standard product that Steve does, I would say work mentor.
Who was the first to have you talk on their show?
Oh, I talked on Steve's show before.
Did you?
Yeah, I just never really wanted to because it was so loud in the room. I couldn't get a point in edgewise.
Okay, Steve got us straight at that. No, we do love Steve, and we want you to listen to his show. It's 7 to 9 on Wednesday, and then 10 to 12 on Saturday. Aforementioned Jeff Isaac for the all request on Saturday, but don't forget about the Polka Pops.
The station owner gave a.
Oh boy, is he he's listening to this?
Apparently.
Oh no. Sorry.
If it's not no points with Ryan Walsh, how about pulled groin with Ryan Walsh?
But the pulled groin is just from getting to the studio. It's just like, okay,
Honestly, I would pull a groin probably trying an extra point, but I think we have to get off the air.
But we appreciate the feedback. We'll take that into account. Thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with us. It was fun. I had fun. Dan didn't, but tune in next week and stay informed and stay vigilant. Have a great week.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh is brought to you by
Collectible Insurance Services, Eric Hall Aesthetic and General Dentistry, Calder Financial, Grand Management Group, Rydan Investments, Encore Business Group, Jim Hegland of JH Realty, Williams Chiropractic, I-Core, the West Michigan Sports Commission.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh.
Stay informed and stay vigilant.